fam.news.
He's the CEO of King Koil, former CEO of Cluft, and a true legend in the mattress industry who's been in this business, the bedding business, for 40 years. David Binke is here, and the Fam Podcast starts right now. Hey, are you a mattress retailer looking to supercharge your business? Introducing Podium, your secret weapon. I use it. I'm a huge fan of it. And with Podium's AI-powered lead conversion, you can engage with customers in seconds via text, making it feel like they're talking to a friend. But hey, that's just the beginning. Podium offers texting, payments, reviews, website chat, and more, all in one place. You've got to be the most responsive retailer to help customers solve those sleep problems in the moment. Harness the power of Podium today and start growing your business. Visit podium.com right now to learn more.
Welcome to the FAM Podcast with Mark Kinsley. This is where the best in the bedding business get even better.
Welcome to the FAM Podcast. I'm so excited to have Mr. David Binke, an icon, here on the show today. David, you're the CEO of King Koil and so much more. Thank you for being on the show with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm an icon, but I'm glad to be on the show.
I feel like I'm waving that magic wand and making it come true. And to me, you are an icon. I remember the very first time that you kind of came into my field of view. I was pretty new in the mattress industry, and we were at a conference, and there was an event that you were spearheading where we were putting together bicycles for kids. And then all the kids came to the event and we got to give them their bicycles. And it really was emotional and truly special. And that was my first introduction to you. And I know that being charitable and giving is a huge part of who you are.
Well, it's very important to me and our organization. And we do that every year. We do some type of event, and for me to see 100 plus kids smiling and getting something like that and just having the fun is what life's all about.
It absolutely is. And we had the opportunity to share some life together at Dream Camp this past week in Palm Springs. And I got to meet a huge part of your life, which is your effervescent, wonderful wife, Kathy. She's absolutely amazing, just a bright light in the world.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate.
So I got to ask you, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Give me your hot take on Dream Camp. I know it's a little different than a lot of events.
Well, it's quite different. I went in very open-minded, and everything exceeded my expectations. The variety of people within the industry, from retailers, manufacturing, supply, just everybody was so engaged, and the work you and Tara do is amazing. The organization, the scheduling, I could just imagine all the behind the scenes you have to do. And you make everybody feel, I guess this is part of it, like part of the family. So we felt that way from the beginning. And it was a great few days. I look forward to next year already.
Me too. We haven't announced where, but I'm glad you'll be there. And I'm glad you came to this one. I know that sometimes the normal rhythm of the industry, I think Dream Camp is a little bit of a pattern interrupt to that. And I think it's been great for a lot of people. And thank you for those kind words. Tara is absolutely incredible. Her and Adrian both. And they are like the cruise ship directors of Dream Camp, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, just everything was so well done. And you just felt at home the whole time. And it was great.
Well, that's so good to hear. We'll have Sleep Summit coming up here October 8th to the 11th, 2024. So if you can make it out to that, I'd love to have you back.
I would imagine I will be there, yes.
And Kathy's always part of the fam as well. And speaking of the family, before we get into your rich career that spanned about 40 years here in the mattress industry, where it really started whenever you were a trainee at Robinson's department store in Southern California. And before we get into all that, that's led to you now being CEO of King Koil. And King Koil just went through a purchase by AI Dreams. So there's so much to talk about there. But I do want to talk about family first, because whenever I was talking to you and Kathy, she shared that your father was a Holocaust survivor.
Yes.
Talk about that.
He spent about 6 years in Auschwitz. And he was, and when he entered the camp, I think he was about 12. So he kind of lost his whole teenage years. And unfortunately, he saw his parents perish, one of his sisters, but the remaining members of his family had three other brothers and a nephew who all made it through. And then they all, after the war, migrated to the Detroit area. And what it did for me, understanding what he went through and his hard work ethic of how to handle life and adversity, I learned at a very, very young age. And it grounded me very early on. And it just kind of set my whole way of thinking, knowing that what my father went through and the work he did to make sure my brother and I had a good life was very well appreciated. And, it's what grounded me in from business and personal. So I'm very blessed. My father was a wonderful, kind gentleman, very modest, very hardworking, and it made an enormous influence on me.
I bet as a young man, hearing some of his experiences, whenever you first realize the gravity of what he had been through and what members of your family had been through, it's probably hard to take in and to truly understand. What are some of the stories that your dad told you or the moments you shared that kind of illustrated to you how hard that was and how it shaped who he became?
Well, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it because I didn't want him to always dredge up the past. But what it really came down to is learning how to appreciate. To get, a piece of bread was like a big deal in the camp, and to have water every day. And he was so appreciative of that. And he didn't, when he got to the States, he didn't have this terrible hatred for what happened. He kind of put it behind him, though I could imagine that's not easy. But I think it set our family that we respected it, we understood it, but we're moving forward. And my dad always looked for the current situation and what we would do as a family going forward. So we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the past, because I'm sure it was more difficult. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like he was just had a ton of grit and he's like, we're moving forward. This is who we're going to be now and not living in the past. And that's
yeah,
got to be, like you said, incredibly difficult to even just, let things go and navigate the day to day.
yeah. I couldn't even fathom, what gone through. I've heard and read horror stories, and I'm sure it was a very challenging, life scaring time. And then, being separated from his family and then realizing his parents perish and other members of his family. And, it's just awful.
It absolutely is. And, I think when I was talking to you and Kathy, and then that piece of the puzzle came up, I was mentioning to her how charitable you are and how giving you are and how big of a heart you have. And I know that, it sounds like a lot of that comes from the example of your dad and that appreciation for life in every moment. And I know that coming up, pretty soon you're going to be honored by City of Hope. Talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. Every year, the home furnishings industry has, out in Southern California, a golf and tennis tournament. And the home furnishings industry for 20 plus years has always been a big sponsor working with the City of Hope. City of Hope's a nonprofit organization that I started helping out when I moved to California in the early 80s, when I was like 21, 22 years old, not knowing. And then spent time in and out of the industry and working with them. And they asked me, which is quite humbling, to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award this year. And with that, we do a lot of fundraising and, I personally contribute. The company contributes and it's on June 10th, this year. And right now we already have almost 500 people coming.
Wow.
Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, so it's, I got to start working on my little humble speech. I can't believe actually all these people are coming, probably not to see me because it's really a good cause, but I do have about 35 people that family and friends that I grew up with in Michigan who are all coming out for that weekend too. Um, and I don't think they, a lot of them we certainly kept in contact, but they know me as a real goofball from a teenager. And now to see me in this kind of stage will be a little shocking for them, I guess. Um,
I bet a fair number of people that I grew up with would feel the same way about me. They were good to come back. And, oh, that guy, really? I was really worried about him when he was in high
yeah,
school.
well, I was fortunate in high school to be voted class clown, so that was my big designation going forward.
Well, you've sure turned the ship around to be, like I said, an icon in this industry. And congratulations on the Lifetime Achievement Award. It's very funny sometimes, um, that the trajectory that unfolds whenever you start something so simple as getting involved in that charity back when you were a young man moving to Southern California and just staying involved all these years. It sounds like.
Yeah, and the people who work at the City of Hope, I watch it from being one building, whatever, in the early 80s to now this massive campus. And they just bought Cancer Centers of America, which is in Phoenix and Chicago, and I think in Florida, which was a profit organization. So a nonprofit organization bought a profit organization, and merging the two. But the work they all do is fabulous. They do groundbreaking research for cancer and diabetes, and I happen to be diabetic, so that also has a spot in my heart too. And they just do amazing work. And the treatment they have on campus for people is just it blows your mind away. It's fabulous.
Wow, you don't hear about that very often about a nonprofit gobbling up a for-profit entity. So,
No, no, that was the first I heard of it. Yeah.
well, let's talk about dynamics of business like that. We're maybe not nonprofit and for-profit, but in our industry, you've been kicking around for a fair amount of time. You started at, like I said, as a trainee at Robinson's department store in Southern California, and then your career in the mattress industry. And that was by happenstance that you ended up in the mattress department. You thought you were going to be in men's fashion.
Yeah. And then from there, I did pretty well. They took a liking to me and they made me the assistant buyer of mattresses. That was like a big deal. And then about a year and a half later, I became the mattress buyer. So I got a good understanding of our business from retail first. And my first 9 to 10 years was all in retail. And I think my retail background is what helped me be mostly successful in my wholesale background. Everything I try to do is looking through the eyes of our retail partners. And I think that's a key ingredient to why I think I've had some levels of success during my wholesale career.
And that career went through Spring Air. You were at Bluebell in Connecticut. You went back to Spring Air, and then you joined King Koil in 2007, and eventually you became the CEO of Cluft in
Mhm.
2011, and you were there for about 5 years. What was it like being, going from kind of the general industry, let's call it, to like this luxury part of the industry?
It's quite different. And my relationship with Heirloom Clough goes way back because Earl Clough and I were partners in Spring Air, Los Angeles. And knowing he was going to retire soon, they brought me in, if I didn't screw it up, to take over when he retired. And he wound up retiring earlier. And then I became the CEO. And then, the company before was always positioned about Earl, and Earl was truly an icon in the business. but I believed, once he exited, we had to be about the company and the brand. And I kind of took a back seat because I was not planning on following Earl's footsteps from, the visual of the company at all, because that just wasn't right. It was all about the heirloom and cloth brand and kind of reposition the company even higher than it really was before. And it was a great run. It was really enjoyable. Um, and we in my time we grew over doubled the company and had record profits and really repositioned the company in a good place. And a lot of great people worked there and still work there. It's still a very good company.
Absolutely. And then you decided, hey, I'm gonna take on this role at King Koil. What was that all about? Because once you joined King Koil, it went from being a licensing group to not being a licensing
Well, it
group
was funny
domestically.
how that happened. The owner of the license group, who happens to own King Koil Malaysia and bought the licensing group, reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to come back and be the CEO and in charge of licensing?" And at Spring Air, we were the largest licensee there. I was a very big licensee at King Koil. I was on the licensor side, and I probably knew too much about that part of the business. And my first reaction to him is, "Are you crazy? I don't want to do that." And he looked at me like, "Well, you had such great experience." And I go, "I don't think the way King calls position, the model really works now." And he goes, "So what would you do?" I said, "I would kind of break it down and then start owned and operated." So he asked me to put a plan together, and I did. And then him and his partners, they said, "Well, can you meet us somewhere?" I go, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Because it started to get a little bit more serious. He goes, "We're going to be in Dubai this weekend. Can you meet us in Dubai?" Now, at this point, I was commuting from Chicago to LA. It wasn't like taking a Greyhound bus, around the block. Oh, all right, I hop on a plane, meet them in Dubai, and we hit it off. I kind of presented my plan, and then we took a couple hour break. And then when I came back, they had this like contract ready for me to sign. "Let's go. Let's do it now. When can you start?" It was very flattering, but it was a little overwhelming. I said, "Well, give me a chance to think about it, talk to my lovely wife. This is going to affect her." And the challenge was to really resurrect and change where King Coil was. My belief in a licensing network, and you've had lots of experience in it too, you're only as good as your weakest license. And unfortunately, my view at King Coil, they were all weak. So I said, I have to do this and do this quickly. So I proceeded in dismantling the entire company in about 4 to 5 months. Then we, signed our lease and started our factory. And, we had 3.5 months to start. And my owners go, "You can't do that. You're crazy. Why are you putting so much pressure?" I go, "Well, I made a commitment for our biggest customer. We're going to start. It was January 15th. We're going to ship May 1st. Biggest customer, Sit and Sleep, was wonderful partners in business I've known for 25, 30 years. They go, "You're not going to be able to do it." I go, "Well, that's part of the challenge, I guess." And we had no customers, no raw materials, no employees, an empty building, and we got it done. And May 1st, we shipped. I don't think I want to do that again. I think those 3.5 months aged me 20, but it truly was doing something I never thought was possible or really would have the opportunity to do. And, we've been doing now a little over 5 years, and I think we've achieved a nice level of success. King Coil now is positioned as an ultra premium luxury brand, where we compete with the heirlooms, and I kind of knew that business part pretty well. And, it went from a promotional, more moderate, low-end brand, and it really transitioned. Now, our average unit selling price is 9 times higher than when we started. So
That
we're off
is,
to a good start, but we have a lot more to do.
that's not, I don't want to gloss over that because your average unit selling price going up 9 times. Yeah, it's one thing to be able to come in and re-engineer your products, reimagine your products, and then launch them. It's another thing to get retailers buying in and saying, yes, I'm willing to sell it as a premium product. I now trust this as a premium product. That's a heavy lift.
Yeah, and most people thought it was going to be impossible. And it happened, to be honest with you, faster than I thought. I had a lot of my old team at Clough follow me, which was very nice. So we had a good head start and we knew what to do. And a pretty decent reputation from the past. But it really wasn't that easy. I make it sound easy, but there was a lot of work involved because it was a complete dichotomy from where King Koil was. It used to be King Koil, if they sold a $6.99 product, they'd go around doing high fives. And now we don't sell anything below $1,000, and our average retail price is about $2,800 on our products. So it's really quite a transformation.
An incredible transformation. And you talked about your team, that was at Clough. David Long, in my opinion, is one of the best product designers and product development people in this business. I think he's a genius to me.
Well, you're very nice to say he's one of the best. I'll tell you, he is the best. David and I worked together 3 times at Spring Air, at Heirloom Clough, and now at King Koil, and I have enormous trust and confidence in him. He's a genius. He very creative, and he understands the mattress industry from a marketing point of view, selling point of view, operations point of view. So I'm very fortunate to have him on the team, and we have a great relationship, and we're having a lot of fun together, along with a lot of our other execs doing what we're doing.
It's something special too to be able to take an organization that's dispersed like that. It's a licensing organization. How are you able to get that done? Because you come in and say, hey, we want to buy you out.
Well,
Do they
no,
have to say yes?
I took a kind of a different approach. There was many of the licensees at the time, they had a total of 7 when I came back, and I did a quick tour, talked to everybody, listened, and then in about a week, it validated my decision. We have to change. So I, for the most part, there was 2 that their contract ended. This was in the fall, ended at the end of the year. I let it expire. Then the rest, I kind of fired, I guess, is the best way to do it. Um, and they said, well, you have a contract. We have 2 or 3 more years. I go, well, I guess you could sue me if you like. I took kind of a tough approach, and I knew nobody was going to sue me because we had pretty deep pockets compared to that, and just said, we're just moving on. And we parted ways, and that all happened in about 4.5 months. I wouldn't have the patience to take years to do that. Where wait for this person's contract to go and see if this person likes it. I didn't really have the stomach for that, to be honest with you. So we did it quickly. And my shareholders, they were very certainly understanding of the licensing network. And one of the shareholders, who was one of the owners, was always a big fan of licensees. And he says, you really got to do it this fast and this quickly. I go, yes. He goes, okay, just call me when it's over.
I'm gonna hide over here for a while. You call
Yeah.
me when the deal's done.
Yeah. So, it was a tougher approach. And I didn't make a lot of friends doing it, to be honest with you, but it was the right thing for the company. And I'm always focused on doing the right thing for the company. And looking back, I don't have any regrets. And we were able to start, and the rest is kind of history.
I completely understand that scenario because, like you said, for 5 years as CEO of Englander, I was running a licensing organization
Mhm.
with three separate owners. They own the brand, so it gave us more of that traditional structure. But yeah, there are many times when I wanted things to unfold a certain way, but you have to bring your licensees along and they have to invest in that vision. And it can be tough, because you got three
Mhm.
organizations, and for Englander, they're great organizations, still are, but they have different priorities. They're running their own business. And so sometimes the Englander priority doesn't
Yeah.
become the top thing. So I
And the people
understand
who
trying
own
to
the
nudge that.
business are good business people. And, some of them are, second, third generation or whatever, and been successful in their own right. But I didn't want to have to spend all my time trying to convince people to do it the way I wanted to do it, because I knew the way I wanted to do it would be the best path going forward. Risky, but I felt it was worth it. And so, I took the course of we're going my way and we're going to start from scratch. And, I guess it's okay.
It seems to be working out for you. Seems
Yeah.
to be working out great. What's we're talking with David Binke, CEO of King Koil. David and I had a chance to spend a little time together at Dream Camp this past week and just really enjoyed it. But David, we talked about your father being a Holocaust survivor. What's one thing that people probably don't know about you besides that?
Uh, I'm a kind of a transparent, open book kind of guy. So, I don't really know it. You know, over the decades in this industry, I think I've developed a good reputation. I have high integrity. Um, I'm easy to work with. Um, you know, I'm not a bad person. I could have a mean streak that a lot of people don't know when I have to, but I kind of keep that hidden. Um, I'm just a regular guy who is done okay in this industry. I enjoy the industry. I enjoy the people in it. So I kind of fit in nicely.
You do fit in nicely. Let's go there for a minute. Um, let's talk about the industry today. Knowing what you know right now and saying you had access to plenty of capital, if you're going to start your career over today, what part of the industry would you get into? Where are the opportunities?
Well, sometimes I kicked myself and said, why didn't I, based on my retail background, and retail stays in your blood forever. Even when you're on the wholesale side, if you got trained in retail and kind of grew up in retail and understood retail, it's part of you forever. Why I didn't start my own sleep chain, maybe, or furniture store, or something like that, because I really love retail. Um, but the opportunity came to buy into Spring Air, so that's when I left retail. Sometimes I kicked myself and said, I could have probably had maybe 50 or 100 stores or whatever now. But, you know, it went a different way, but I enjoy what I do and I'm close to our retail partners. So I still get the vibe of retail and I probably don't have the headaches of owning a bunch of stores. So I guess that's good.
What is it that you love about retail? You said it once it gets in your blood, it stays there. What is it about it? How would you describe
It's
that?
so instant and immediate. And, you know, coming from a department store, and back when I was in the 80s and I spent my first 9, 10 years in department stores, you got a lot of responsibility at a very young age. And there was something called like the daily flash. The when you get in the next day, you had all the sales by stores, products, and you saw, your report card every single day. And that just got me so excited and knowing, and it was very fast paced and I learned so much. I had unbelievable mentors when I worked in the department store world. And I was like a sponge. And I thought, this was it for me. I was going to stay here and do this. And I did, I would say, very well. But I had an opportunity to buy into a business that I really couldn't have done at retail at the department stores. So I took that gamble, but it stayed with me. And I just love retail because you're close to your customer and it changes almost minute by minute, it seems like. And I love that. I thrive on that.
Okay, so let's go there. Let's go even deeper. So let's say that you're getting into retail today, knowing the landscape with TSI and Mattress Firm and some large regionals and the big box and the online world. You're going to start the David Binke sleep shops. What is that experience like? What do you do today to stand out or differentiate?
Well, today's environment in retail is so different than when I started. And, how the industry is set, Matt Firm is a huge, tremendous, well-run organization that kind of sets a lot of standards. And the huge regionals of it's Raymore Flanagan, Rooms to Go, Sit and Sleep, are just such great retailers. Starting today, I think would be very, very difficult. Because, for me to spend a day in a store selling, I'm probably not that good at that. So where I am now, I still close to retail and enjoy working with my retail partners. But because of the environment in retail so challenging, now back in the 80s, there was no such thing as e-commerce. There was no such thing as Amazon. The dynamics are so different today of how retail is done compared to when I was in retail. So I think I'm better suited on the wholesale side.
Heard loud and clear. It is tough. It is really challenging. I think the people that do it well are incredibly involved in their communities. I mean, it is like
Mhm.
the sit and sleeps of the world where, they've been on TV for decades and people know them and they trust them. And that takes a long time to build up.
Yes. Yeah. And there is charitable people as you would ever meet. I mean, just wonderful people. They give back to the community always. And, you know, their brand resonates throughout Southern California better than any of the mattress wholesale brands.
So people probably saw this news as well, David, that the company AI Dream
Mhm.
purchased King Koil. And so we
Mhm.
saw that information coming out and that news coming out. What does that mean? Tell us about AI Dream? Does it mean artificial intelligence, first of all, or is that just a couple of letters on the front side of it?
I think it was a couple letters in front of it. It was developed before artificial intelligence became, a thing, I guess. It's kind of a mattress holding company that, as I explained earlier, owns King Koil China, Serta China, Roof Betten, which is a German manufacturing, now the King Koil manufacturing company, which we have in Arizona, and the licensing company. And they're very heavily invested in global mattress business and see the opportunity. They watch very closely how King Koil has transformed here in the United States and saw that as a very unique opportunity. Well, right before they rented the brands, now owning the brand makes a big difference. And that's where the investment's going to be. And they'll want to accelerate the growth in the United States and around the world. So we'll do it, I think, very smartly. We'll be safe, but we're going to be aggressive in what we do going forward. It's going to be exciting. When we made the decision to open up a factory, I said, we're not going to do anything until we get it right. And I said, that's like a 5-year timeline. First, a new business, it takes a while to make money. It took us, a little while to become, fairly profitable. Then we hit COVID, throws everything for a loop. And then, you have a post-COVID where it gets crazy. Then you had the supply chain crisis, which was crazy. And we haven't really been operating under normal times. Then you have all the inflationary things. So we haven't had any real time to run like a normal business, which probably made us better in how we do things. Now we see a lot of that behind us. Not that it's easy now; it's still challenging, but we'll I think create a faster path going forward in growth. We're going to potentially look at some acquisitions where we put another plant or two if we decide to do that. So, I say the next 6 months is going to be a lot of studying, figuring out our next steps. I have a good idea what we want to do, but I want to get it validated and make sure, for the new ownership, that we do it right.
We'll have to have you back on the podcast whenever that news is ready to be shared with the world, and you can give us an update on the play-by-play, which is very different. Like you talked about, this role and acquisitions and allocation of capital, very different than the immediacy of retail, like that quick hit, that instant interaction. You're on the
Yeah,
long timeline now.
yeah. I'm sure we'll come across some hurdles during this process. The market is tough right now, as you know. Retail's challenging. We're going through at retail and wholesale enormous consolidation. And there might be less people involved down the road. And that's part of, unfortunately, consolidation. Sometimes it helps, but sometimes it's not so fortunate for a lot of people.
Mm.
I'm not worried about that on our end. We're very strong financially. It's just how we get it done and get it done correctly and in a time frame that is acceptable.
Well, I know you've got the backing of a large company now with AI Dream, and I'll say that one of the things that I noticed is outside of the US, when I was spending time in India with our licensee, King Koil is incredibly prominent as a brand in India and positioned at the higher end. So the global footprint of King Koil to me is absolutely remarkable.
Well, that's what I saw, in Asia. I go, well, why is the United States focused on making inexpensive product when around the world it was more of a premium brand? Kind of validated the decision why I changed, and like I said, we got there quicker than I thought. Now, I would say we have one of the highest average unit selling prices within the industry. Um, and proud of that. And we don't chase pieces. I learned early on, we look at dollars and doing what's right for our retail partners, and we more of a niche player. So in that world, you got to be very focused on your niche to be successful. You can't be all things to all people.
What is so when you focus on that niche, you're trying to find the right fit client or the right fit customer as well. Like, who is that today? What's the profile of a retailer that you would like to attract to the King Koil brand?
Well, one of customers that are financially stable, that's always important. Have, if it's big companies or privately owned companies that have a good mission and strategy. Obviously, any of our retail have to have great, clean, wonderful storefronts, to sell, expensive product. And there's tons of great retailers out there. There's endless opportunities. So, my biggest frustration is we can't sell enough of them fast enough, so we made some progress, but we got a long way to go. And, the United States is a very, very big market and lots of opportunity.
Well, there is lots of opportunity, even in the middle of all the kind of the
Yeah,
chaos of the economy, and as things change and consolidation happens, it's still a huge market. And I think, what is it, 10% of people at any moment are in the market for better sleep?
that's what they say, and that's probably a pretty good number. So, thank God everybody sleeps on a mattress, and most homes have two, three, four, or many more. So, it's a great product. But it is a postponable purchase. As I always say, you know, if your refrigerator goes, you got to buy one the next day because everything's going to spoil. If your mattress is old, well, I could be on it for another couple weeks, couple months, another year. Well, the old days we used to flip them, and not so much anymore. And it's an easier purchase to postpone. It's not driven by fashion. And with the current environment with very high interest rates, people aren't refinancing, aren't moving. So like the last big driver of our business now is divorce, and that's not good, but it is good for our business.
Yeah, I always talk about when people come in to buy a mattress, most of the time they're going through some sort of transition, whether
Hmm.
that transition is moving to a new home or they got divorced or grandma's moving in or out or kid off to
Hmm.
college or lake house. So that transition becomes real. And in a transition, people are typically a little scared. So they're looking for an assurance of an outcome. So that considered purchase, and I think the premium place where you're playing, I think it's a good strategy.
Consumers don't wake up on a Saturday morning and say, "Hey, let's go mattress shopping," unless they need it. It's not very glamorous. Like if you want to go into a department store and buy, new clothes or whatever, it's it is what it is. So, but everybody has to have a good mattress. I'm a firm believer in that, and getting a good night's sleep is nobody knows is better than you is so important to life and health.
It is the foundation of health and wellness to me. Sleep is, with mental health and fitness and nutrition all benefiting if you get a great night's sleep. And I love that we get to share that mission in this industry, and I love that we get to follow in the footsteps of people like you. David, thank you so much for being on the podcast and
Well, thanks for
sharing some of
having
your
me. I
story.
really enjoyed it, and you know, I I got so much out of Dream Camp, and now I was kind of active in LinkedIn. Now I'm linked into everybody in Dream Camp, and my phone's buzzing all the time, and it's really nice. So it is a great network, and you guys should be so proud of what you've done in really a short period of time, and taking this type of approach to make a community, which is not easy at all. People, got craziness in their work lives, personal lives, and those few days we were all together, I really didn't have a worry in the world.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. It's a special group, and it's a really special thing that happens whenever you get together and you know what you're getting into, and everybody is playing by the same rules and carrying the same coin and just
It was
having fun
funny
along the
when
way.
you invited me. I told Kathy, my wife, well, we're going to dream camp. Her first reaction is, oh, I get to sleep all day. That's great. She loves to get her rest. I go, well, I don't think you're going to be sleeping all day, but we're going to talk about sleep a lot. And she had a wonderful time too. And, it was great. It really was.
Well, I know there are a bunch of pictures up online, so if you want to check them out, you can go over to LinkedIn and you can connect with Mr. David Binke, and you can see people holding random babies in Palm Springs and jumping into pools fully clothed, and on it went.
It was not what I would say a normal day in the mattress business, yes, which made
Well,
it that much more fun.
we'll take that as a huge compliment
It
because
was. It is.
we all need that time. My friend once said, if you're having fun, you've already won. So we try to make it fun and fill up people's hearts and their heads and their businesses. And everybody walks away with a bunch of new friends. And it sounds like you did, because I know that, um,
Yeah, I did, and I'm glad, and especially you and I had become closer in a very short period of time, which is very important. So I really feel privileged about that. Thank you.
Same here, David. Thank you for saying that. And it's been great having you here on the Fam Podcast. And best wishes as your family and friends and everybody comes out to celebrate you at City of Hope. Congratulations on that. And I want to have you come back here in maybe a few months, and we can continue talking about the King Koil story and more.
Yeah, we got a lot more chapters to add to this book, so I'm excited about it. It won't be easy, but it's going to be enjoyable and prosperous, and you know, kind of changing the way things happen. And in our own little world is exciting. A guy at my age now, I'm getting old, so I got to do all this stuff before I decide to, sit on the bench.
Well, we don't want you riding the pine yet. So
No,
we're keeping
no,
you
no.
around.
I wouldn't know what to do with myself, and I haven't finished what I've set out to do. So I don't. Retirement's just a long word to me. There's no
Let's
actuality to it at all. So
let's end the podcast today with a piece of advice. If there's a young person out there that's in the business or maybe getting started, any words of wisdom or encouragement you could pass their way?
Yeah, if you come into this business, come in open mind and open heart, meaning learn from people, because when you start in this business, you don't know anything. And day by day, you'll learn and be open. And there's so many professional and experienced people that you could just really get mentored every day. Do that. And then when you're able to give back, it's very important when you become whatever level of success that you give back to people who aren't as fortunate. And to me, that kind of drives me a lot. You know, what we do every year with the Boys and Girls Club and the City of Hope. And, you know, I do things at various other Jewish campaigns. And, you know, if you're fortunate to give back, it's important because there's no better feeling than giving.
Well said. Well said. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the show. If you're listening, make sure and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. If you're ever on YouTube, you could subscribe there. And then you can go to thefam.com and always sign up for our newsletter. David Binke, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, David, for your friendship, for the icon you are in this industry, and for being on the show today.
Oh, it was great. Thank you.